everyone, I'm Nala.
And I'm Faith.
And this is the Siren's Den breakdown, theories, and things you may have overlooked for episode 3 of The Falcon and Winter Soldier.
So, as always, this is your official spoiler warning.
We get to see some new places, some really cool looking places. The episode reminded me a lot of the aesthetic and action of John Wick, which makes sense because it was written by the same guy. So we got a bunch of action scenes in that episode, and I'm excited to go through it.
Yeah, and we got some exciting just Marvel fan drops that a lot of people have been waiting for forever. We finally got to go to Madripoor, which how have we not been here before?
I know. I'm like, how is the first time seeing of this?
They absolutely delivered on just bringing Madripoor to life on screen. So shout out to Falcon and the Winter Soldier for giving us this little Easter egg. Also, we're recording this on Easter. Haha. Every time we say Easter egg, it's a joke. Woo!
So let's pick them up.
Alrighty. So we start our episode off by this kind of PSA. Have you guys ever seen Better Off Ted?
No.
Better Off Ted, great show, only lasted 2 seasons. It was about an evil corporation. They started off every single episode with just one of those corporate ads of, here at this corporation, we believe in that. And every corporate BS ad that you've ever seen in your life, right?
Fabulous,
You're familiar. The propaganda ads, the political ads, those. And it started one of those
video.
But we start off with one of those. It is one of those for the global It starts with an R, or dyslexia. Reappropriation. See, I'm not the only one struggling with.
Yeah, it was weird.
Appropriation Council, which I guess is just there to help everyone who's returning from the blip and get them the resources and their jobs back and making them functional members of society. And it's all kumbaya. And we hard cut into the Captain America action team coming in and storming in on that German cafe owner that we saw in the episode help with Flag Smashers, and just police brutality at its finest, really.
For sure. I love this scene for a lot of reasons. One, that jump cut, that smash cut dichotomy of peaceful, we all love each other, let's get back to the world, to hey, this is reality and it's pretty brutal. But I loved this part because you see this guy with the Captain America shield, and for a split second your mind just flashes back to Steve, and you're like, how would Steve have handled this situation? And you realize it's not that. He goes berserk.
The guy that they're is kind of standoffish to them because it's a police raid. You're not chill. That you're usually not chill with the cops at that point. And he just loses his shit on this.
The guy spits on him, and he just absolutely pummels him. Crazy.
Wyatt Russell nailing it
again. He has really been bringing a lot to this role, and also, the nerds, the angry nerds can die mad about it. He's clearly a comic book character.
He's a comic book character. A, he's clearly the villain. B, and then also Steve wouldn't want this, guys.
Absolutely not. And honestly, you wanna hurt Wyatt Russell, you can square up against his dad, who is a planet. Get out of my face. No actor deserves hate for a character they play. It's their job.
Especially for getting hate for a character they're playing really well.
Yes.
That's ridiculous to me. There's no justification for any sort of actor hate for a character that they play ever. But just it's just kind of a special kind of irritating when it's hate for playing the villain good.
This is our Wyatt Russell love hour. Commencing right now.
It is simultaneously with the John Walker hate hour.
Absolutely. Our morals have completely shifted.
For the record, we love Wyatt Russell.
We
John
do.
Walker is the worst. Like
Yeah, well, this is
he's great
no
on TV.
reflection on our opinions of John Walker because he's trash. And when he yelled, "Do you know who I am?" I was like, "Oh, oh Lord, this is why they hate America."
Mhm.
So we get that they don't find who they're looking for. Carly's gone, but you can see John Walker is starting to crack. He's starting to
Yeah.
become less sympathetic as Captain America.
Oh yeah, he's crossed that bridge.
No.
Sorry, I unmuted myself too soon.
Another part I liked about this was the fact that he couldn't understand what the guy was saying, and so he had his sidekick that he calls him Battlestar come and translate for him, and that's really different from our A team because Bucky and Sam know different languages, so does Cap, but now good old American boy John Walker only knows English, which is like
Mhm.
it's not worldly of him. And as someone with on that pedestal, it's like you don't only represent America, you represent your place in the world.
Oh yeah, just I think this is also really a good character moment for Lamar too. Just because John Walker can't understand the German man, he has Lamar translate. Lamar asks the question, and the German man is very rude about it. Like just but when Lamar like relates this back to John Walker, he doesn't relay any of the stuff that he was saying. He just that oh no, he doesn't know. With leaving out the other stuff, kind of to protect him almost. So I think that was just it was such a small character moment, but I'm really more interested in Lamar Hoskins as Battlestar just to see where he goes.
Enough on these guys. Let's get to the main meat of the story. Well, why we're really here this episode.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, we're here as we left off in the last episode. They're gonna visit Zemo in prison, and that's where we're at. We're in prison with Zemo. We start out outside the prison. Bucky's like, I need to talk to him alone, and Sam's like, no, it's a terrible idea. And Bucky's like, he hates heroes, so he'll hate you. And Bucky and Sam's like, you guys literally beat each other up last time that you met. And Bucky's like, I was just a means to an end. It's fine. And goes in to see Zemo alone. And notably, the very first thing Zemo says to Bucky is the activation Winter Soldier activation code, which, that makes sense, right? Like the Winter Soldier is here.
This part, I was yelling at the screen. I was just yelling at how mean Zemo is. Like he just keeps torturing Bucky at every chance he can get, and he deserves better. But those codes don't work anymore, and Bucky, you can see the growth that Bucky's had, which makes me happy.
Yeah.
I just want to say, like, before we get into the rest of the scene, I love this scene. It was really well executed.
Yeah. It was just a nice moment between the two, and also just because in the last episode we were talking about how this is gonna be Bucky going to throw hands with Zemo. That's the real plan why he's here. No, he's here for information. He's really using Bucky or not using Bucky. He's using Zemo because he thinks he can help prevent the super soldiers. They actually have a common goal here. Which, granted, that doesn't mean he's not gonna throw hands with Zemo later and isn't planning to do so later.
Oh, for sure. I'm sure Zemo's gonna,
Yeah.
Another part, not only just getting more information on where they can find the super soldier serum, he obviously needs Zemo, so he's gonna break him out.
Yeah.
And the rest of the scene plays out in parallel action. And it's really the lead in is brilliant because Sam and Bucky go to this unknown location. It's dark, it's musty. Sam doesn't know where they are, and Bucky's like, "Okay, well, let me run this hypothetical, totally didn't happen scenario by you. What do you tell me what you think?"
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Ocean's 11 heist movie, like classic breakout scene. Who doesn't love it?
Yeah. They essentially talk about how the weakest point of a prison is the meatware, and basically it's showing how Bucky throws a note at a couple of inmates playing chess while he's leaving. And the note says, "Hey, this guy's gonna kill you. Kill him first." And so they start fighting. And then Zemo slips out in the chaos, takes out a guard, and gets a guard uniform. He trips a fire alarm. Blah 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 blah. It's pretty good. But one thing I really liked about it is how totally useless Bucky was to this whole scheme. Like,
Yeah.
it really felt like this was gonna happen today, regardless. This is just like, this is convenience. Can you
He's
do
like,
this
Bucky,
little part of the plan that I don't really need that much?
Mhm.
It's two big things, but like I feel like it didn't necessarily need to be Bucky. Like he had all this like just set up.
Oh, I wouldn't put it past Zemo to be like, how convenient. The very day I decided to break out, here we are. that was my Zemo impression. I should start touring.
It's true. It's true.
No, actually, I mean, I don't want to try. I don't want to try giving him his like German Latvian accent. I don't want to, suffer the embarrassment. So
Mhm.
he, Zemo goes through his plan, gets out successfully. Sam's like, "Why are you being so chill about this? I don't like this tone. Something's up." A figure comes through. Boom! It's Zemo.
Mhm.
And obviously Sam's reaction is very Sam-like. He's he squares up. And then, Bucky has to explain that they need to work together for at least some stuff.
Yeah.
Some of this mission.
I really also liked this scene because as Sam and Bucky have their private back and forth about if they're going to take Zemo along, really do this. It's a really first note at an important character trait that was established in Zemo this episode that we didn't get in his previous Civil War appearance, and that is that he's a total dweeb.
Absolutely a dweeb. I love when he asks if he could say something, and they're like, "No," and he's like, "Oh, okay,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, all right."
Mutter.
He apologizes. He's like, sorry. Like I hate that I love Zemo now because he's such a dork.
I
He's
when he
absolutely
tried to offer himself, like he's like, I do think I'll be very invaluable to you guys, and Sam just turns to him and is like, "Shut up," and he's like, "Yeah, okay."
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. He obviously like this might be him just playing a longer game, as you'll see later on in this scene when he's starting to get stuff from the various cars that he owns, because as he explains later on, he is a baron.
Mm-hmm.
He
His
passes
family
by. He passes by. He like lifts up. He opens the trunk, sees some guns, then closes it. He's not wanting to like play all his cards just yet. He's gonna
Yeah.
gain their trust by being useless as he can be, essentially, and let them do most of the work. But we also get finally his cool Zemo mask. I'm so glad we finally get that. And it was something that he didn't show them. He deliberately hid away from them, which is, more hints that he's definitely playing a longer game.
Yeah. He mentions to them that they're going to Madripoor to see a woman named Selby, and they'll figure the rest out from there. Which takes them to Baron Zemo's private jet, y'all.
Wow.
Sam's like, what do you mean you're rich? And Zemo's like, yeah, my family was the royalty of Sokovia until you guys destroyed Sokovia.
So he drops some hints in this episode to something potentially larger in this universe. He says Sokovia was picked apart by bordering countries, and one of the countries that borders it is Latveria. And from the comics, that is where Doctor Doom is from. So that might be our little Easter egg of this is going to be so irrelevant when the episode actually airs, but we'll enjoy it for now. Of potentially, Fantastic Four coming in. We're gonna, probably get into some X-Men stuff being laid in there.
Yeah. and for X-Men, the bar that they go to in Madripoor, it's the Princess Bar, and that's just where Wolverine would off to when he just didn't want to deal with the world.
Absolutely.
And he'd go by the name Pat Patch, and that was just kind of his place.
Fabulous. This is great. They're really setting up a lot, which is like it's a lot more subtle than WandaVision was, which I really appreciate. So once again, Zemo taking every opportunity to torture Bucky, takes his book, the little red book that he keeps all these names in, and specifically says the name that's circled, which, as we've seen in episode 1, holds a very significant meaning to him. So Bucky snatches it away, all upset, and Sam brings up the fact that that was Steve's old journal, which I really loved. I love that, Steve gave him his old little journal. He probably has written some other stuff in there. I don't know. But that's, Sam points out, is the one that he's told him to write Trouble Man on, which was, a significant part of Winter Soldier. And they start talking about Trouble Man, and, Zemo again interjects with some dweeb nonsense. And
He's like, it really captures the African American experience.
Yes, to which Sam is like, okay, we'll discuss that later. We'll unpack that later. I love how they're just, they're just chilling on this plane, almost like friends. It gives me very hello Zuko here vibes.
I personally liked it when the ancient butler on the private jet. He's like, I think there might be some expired food on here. I'll check it. And Zemo, in their native tongue, was just like, no, don't worry about it. Just give it to these guys.
Yeah, if it doesn't pass the smell test, give it to them. Again, just getting more into Zemo's past, and yeah, just seeing what a giant prankster and dork he is. But now we get into
they talk about symbols a little bit. How the problem with symbols and men like Steve Rogers is that people don't understand what it means to be that, and will like use it for their own means. Kind of talking about the new Captain America. And then also they talk about Madripoor, and Sam's like, why are you guys talking about Madripoor like it's Skull Island? And they're like, because it's Skull Island. So that takes us to Karli. She's in a refugee camp. She's told, "Oh, it's time to come say goodbye." She rushes to be to some woman's side, and just kind of cries while she slips away. Notably, this woman is carrying a pendant that has a hand with a globe in it. Where have we seen that before?
She seems like a very influential person within the Flag Smashers. So we'll see if they allude to what happened to her character anymore.
Yeah. I think we will a little bit. It's kind of implied that this is the big motivating thing for the Flag Smashers. It was a little bit of a choppy scene. As we found out this week, one of the main subplots that they recut and kind of cut around for Falcon and the Winter Soldiers is that plague was going to break out in refugee camps, and they cut that because plague has broke out everywhere, and
plague has broke out in the world.
He's like, whoa, we want to get a little political with this, not really political.
We want this to hit a little close to home, not home run. But I think that's interesting. It's a bummer that they had to cut that subplot out, and that contributes to the short episode count. We are technically halfway through the show now, but we are still getting some cool stuff because we're getting into Madripoor. Beautiful, like cyberpunk-esque pirate city, technologically advanced. Don't know how to describe it.
Yeah, they're all totally dressed to the nines. They get into this like super awesome car and go into this underground tunnel. They mention Hightown and Lowtown, and that they're going to Lowtown. And Sam's like, is that because we have no friends in Hightown? And they have one friend in Hightown, but we'll get to that later.
I love this episode for a lot of reasons, but also the style. They are super styling, specifically Sam, who's dressed in this like really cool, neatly patterned suit, which he thinks makes him look like a pimp. To which, Zemo replies that only an American would say that, which, that checks out.
Mhm.
Because he looks exactly like the person he's supposed to play, which is a man who's nicknamed the Smiling Tiger. And he's like, well, wow, even the nickname's horrible. But we'll get more on Smiling Tiger later because I do like the payoff on this.
Mhm. The Smiling Tiger being an actual villain in the Marvel comics.
And Zemo is dressed in this like fur-lined trench coat. Ooh, very good, very nice. And
Mhm.
of course, which is, it looks so much like his comic counterpart.
Mhm. It's like his comic counterpart if his comic counterpart looked cool.
But which again, we'll get more into why Baron Zemo is a dweeb, but for now he looks pretty dope. And of course, Bucky is made to look like classic Winter Soldier, just tactical gear, but still works it.
But we see they look at a bar called the Princess Bar. The Princess Bar being another Easter egg for if you're a Wolverine fan, you might recognize the Princess Bar of the hot spot that Wolverine would go to when he just didn't want to deal with the world. He'd be there under the alias Patch. So that was exciting to see. But they go to a
And again, I love this scene. I love this world that they've created, the aesthetics, the lights, the motorcycles encircling them. It again is very reminiscent of John Wick and the fact that they're in this city full of assassins. They really amplify the colors.
yeah, it was such a beautiful area.
Hmm.
But they walk into this bar and they immediately get noticed because the Winter Soldier just walked into a bar.
Oh my
Um,
god.
he's pretty notorious in the underworld. And they go to a bartender. They mention that we're here to speak with Selby. Sam's trying to play it cool and stay in character. The bartender asked him, "Smiling Tiger, do you want the usual?" And Sam's like, "Yeah." And it turns out the usual was snake guts and alcohol.
Called the Smiling Tiger. I loved this little part so much. It was that classic, I don't want to drink this, but I have to. And Sam, he tries to play it cool, but you can tell that he's not. And the look that he and Bucky share, Bucky's clearly like, wow, smooth. You took it down like a champ.
Mhm, mhm. I like how Sam and Bucky bonded a lot more in this episode.
I think they're starting to realize that, the other is not so bad. And when they work together, they genuinely do a good job.
Most of the time.
Yeah, that's fair. So they get into a classic bar fight here because Zemo has to keep up appearances while he asks to talk to Selby because he's not allowed there, I guess. They said it was bold of him to show his face here. So something's up,
Mhm.
and we'll get more on that later. But we see this figure disappear into the crowd. They lift their hood up, and the hoodie is the classic incognito Marvel costume. So we know it's someone from yeah, it's Shield's go-to undercover, not really look. So we know it's someone we probably have seen before. Bucky gets into, he gets activated as the Winter Soldier and just, kicks butt. And Selby says, all right. Selby agrees to meet with them. But at the end of the scene, it kind of broke my heart because Sam asks Bucky if he's okay having just, gone full Winter Soldier again. And Bucky, of course, just, shrugs it off. But you can tell that it brought back something in him that he really did not want to deal with.
Yeah. I I felt so bad for him in that moment. Like as much as that was a really cool fight,
Hmm.
just Bucky's having to face a lot of past that I don't think he was preparing to face today.
Yep, for sure. My poor tortured boy.
But he's doing it to stop more super soldiers from happening.
His cause is noble. So they meet up with Selby, and this is where stuff starts to get a lot more intense.
Mhm.
As if it already wasn't.
Yeah. So basically, they meet with Selby in like the private loft. Selby kind of like questions them a little bit before Zemo is like, "Well, I'm here because if you give me the information about the super soldier serum, I'll give you the Winter Soldier complete with activation code." And she's like, "Ooh, yeah, cool."
Batteries not included though.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's what I'm here for.
It's true. It's true. But yeah, so Selby tells them that there is a professor named Nagel who created this serum, that he's here in Madripoor working on it. But she won't tell the mayor because she'll give him the breadcrumbs, but the bakery they gotta pay for. And that's when Sam's phone rings.
Oh, of course, because of course it does. I love how bad Sam is at being undercover. He's like,
Hmm.
"I'm Sam. I ain't gonna be anyone but Sam." So this is hard.
They make him answer the phone. It's Sarah who's calling him his sister, and they make him answer the phone on speaker.
I will just say I really loved the actress who played Selby. She did a great job being like this like neurotic, also paranoid type villain. Specifically with Sam because she points at him first and she says, "You're taller than I thought." Smiling tiger. So she already knows something is a little up.
Hmm.
And then she asks him, she says, "Answer the phone" on speaker as she points to a guard who's coming up with a gun.
I will say though, I felt that was a weird note because Sam later, when they're being chased, is like, "I can't run in these heels," and it's really clear. It's easy to tell when someone has platform boots or like heeled boots. So what do you mean he's taller than you thought he was?
Fair point. Maybe she didn't look at his shoes.
So Sam enters the phone and like kind of plays the pronoun game of Sarah a little bit. Like Sarah's like, "We need to talk about the situation," and he's like, "What situation?" And like trying to antagonize her a little bit. And she's like, "The boat," and they talk a little bit about the bank. He's just kind of trying to play it cool and like sound tough. And
Mhm. Yeah, he's like,
can
"We'll
we
make the
appreciate that
bank
Sarah had
pay as
no
soon as we."
reaction to when Sam's like, "Yeah, we'll make that banker pay when I kill him."
Well, no, not yet. She's just like, "Yeah, okay." Yeah, and then after that, she doesn't really have time to respond because she's dealing with the kids. And this is where it gets tense because she just offhandedly says, "Sam, I'm going to call you back."
Hmm.
And that's when Selby knows, the jig is up and orders them to, be executed. But she gets shot. That was a horrible bullet shot. But that's what happened. They actually
Hmm.
used my sound effect for the episode.
Hmm.
It was very believable.
It's true. All right. So they are like, "Oh God, we got to get out of here." After they take out the Selby goons, and as like they're leaving, everyone gets the text message that Selby dead, like $1 million for the bounty of people whoever brings in the people who killed her, and everyone knows it's those three. So they're just like walking through town as everyone's getting these texts that are like, "Kill these people." There's a
Mhm.
woman in the window who kind of like winks at them and like does a fake gun at them, and then they're just attacked by everyone in the city,
It
and they
goes dark.
it goes dark, because everyone's like, "Oh, I want that bounty," and they kind of they split apart for a little bit. They kind of go their separate ways, just getting split up in the chaos. They do get out. They manage to kind of like take out people and run and do pretty good, until it's just they manage to get surrounded by a group of goons in a back alley. And as they are surrounded by the group of goons, just they're all shot from above by a sniper, and it's ba ba da
Dun, dun, dun,
ba
dun.
Sharon Carter.
No, this scene was super awesome, and we finally get Sharon again. And you can infer that she was probably the one who shot Selby as well, which makes
Mhm.
you wonder, why is she in Madripoor? What is she actually doing here? And she seems to know what's happening when it's happening everywhere.
Yeah,
But there she is.
she seems pretty in the know about what's going on.
Yeah, and she says, "I have a place up in Hightown. You can stay for a bit." And she takes them to, oh my God, like when you think a place up in Hightown, you're thinking tiny studio apartment, but no, not Sharon Carter.
Yeah, she takes them to like just this high rise fancy like loft. It is dream apartment. It's where she sells a
Absolutely.
bunch of stolen art, as she put it. "If I'm gonna hustle, I might as well live the life of a hustler." Um,
Mhm.
and Sam's like, "Oh, you mean like fake pieces? Like these aren't real?" And they're like, "Yeah, dude, the rich have all the real stuff, and all the fakes are in museums. What do you think happens?" And sure enough, Sam looks it up, and it's accurate. which takes them to they're changing, they're getting ready for the day, and they're trying to convince Sharon to help them out here. Sam is like, come on, be a good guy again. Blah, blah. Sharon's just like, you know the hero stuff's
That was a
bullshit.
great Sam impression.
Yeah, I've been working on it.
We should
I
tour together.
but Sharon's like, you must have known that heroes are BS because why would else would you have given up the shield? And then Zemo was like, yeah, no, he definitely knows that. She kind of goes into what happened to her post Civil War is that she was labeled an enemy of the state, but she was in an Avengers, so she didn't just have resources to rely on. So she kind of went on the run. She can't go back in the United States because she'll immediately get arrested. And everyone else was able to get these awesome pardons and redemption except her.
It begs to think she's living a pretty dope life in Madripoor, and she obviously knows how to handle herself. So it's not like she's threatened by living there.
Hmm.
And while she says she can't call her family or else they'll like track her, like I think there's more to her just being like, "Oh, I was labeled an enemy of the state. There was nothing I can do, and so I'm here." I think she's cultivated this life for her, which is very interesting because it's in this dark underbelly, like, shady stuff. She is a hustler and she's kind of on the same ranks as the villains. I mean, it seems like the villains are the ones that are rich and have no
Hmm.
problems while the heroes like Sam struggle to get a boat loan.
That's true.
Heroism doesn't pay, I guess.
Um, Sam eventually kind of like talks her down of like, I will try and get you a pardon if you please help us. And Sharon's just like, fine. That sounds like a deal. We'll do that because I mean, an official pardon wouldn't hurt her.
Totally, yeah. I don't think she's gonna really stop living her life in Madripoor, but she says she's hosting a party, which we get more of Dweeb Zemo in, but she's hosting a party. Just play it cool, and she'll be talking to some of her clients because she has a lot of connections.
Hmm.
So we
And
get
then yeah, we get just a dope ass rich people party.
Oh, okay. Hold up, hold
Um,
up, hold up. Wait. I also want to point just one more thing in
oh
this scene
yes.
is I love Bucky's relationship with Sharon as well because he talks about, she disses on him and he says, "Wow, she's horrible now." And I mean, I think that's very telling, and I mean, maybe he doesn't cuz he doesn't know much about her and her situation, but he's like, "You've changed." And as someone who is also drastically changed, he's like, "I don't think I like this."
Yeah. There's very few constants in his life, Steve being the main one and kind of the world around him. I don't know how much him and Sharon really got to interact post Civil War because they didn't really interact in Civil War. Like he was in a car when she smooched Steve, and that was kind of the extent of what they knew of each other or got to know each other in what we've seen before. So there must have been some little bit of history post going on the lam.
Probably. And I just think it's interesting because Bucky, who was the villain, is now kind of going to the good side, and she seems to be going towards the villainy side, which is totally different from what Steve and her aunt Peggy would have done and chosen to be. Like, I think that's very interesting too.
Yeah. That takes us to Sharon's dope party.
Oh, where
It's
was the
it's
invite? My invite got lost in the mail, so
uh,
it's like that's why I wasn't there.
from in a post COVID world that just looks like a nightmare.
I know, it absolutely does. I was like, "Wait, is this legal anymore?" Well, I mean, I wouldn't put it past Sharon to do something illegal, but not to that point.
Hmm.
The music's popping and, they're trying to have a good time. Zemo just lets loose. Zemo's out on the dance floor,
Hmm.
showing off his spectacular moves,
Hmm. The
while dancing with nobody. He's on his own.
yeah.
He's that one drunk guy at the party who's just feeling himself.
I really want to take because the party scene it doesn't improve the plot in some way. It just shows Zemo being a dweeb, really.
Absolutely. An absolute mood. I love Zemo's dance moves. He's growing on me and I hate it.
Uh,
It's our Zemo love hour now. Hate to say it, but I'm pretty sure we'll get more more Zemo love hours for a little bit, but this was definitely one of them.
Mhm. And then we go to the it's in the party. It's just kind of a throwaway line of "We found the guy. We gotta go." And then it takes us to a bunch of or not warehouses, but a bunch of storage units.
Like a
Where,
cargo hold,
hmm
bunch of
and
yeah,
Sharon
shipment
leads them to
containers.
yeah, and Sharon leads them to one in particular and points to it and is like, that's the one Nagel's in, but don't be too fast because people are gonna find out where we are. And then they go into the container and she stands guard outside. They don't see anything at first, it looks totally empty, and then they find a hidden door where they go into the Nagel lab and meet Mr. Nagel himself, who okay, did anyone else really think of Jesse Eisenberg and
Oh my god, that was absolutely me. I literally said that. I
it
was like, "Oh, Jesse
was
Eisenberg?"
just like, oh, it's Mark Zuckerberg.
Absolutely. I was like, "Oh, look, he's gonna be the new
It's
Lex
where Mark
Luthor. Great."
Zuckerberg would have ended up if he didn't steal the idea from the Winklevoss twins and which I won't get into Army Hammer. Just that whole
That's for another episode.
that's for another episode.
um I thought this scene, this set design was so cool. Just the whole thought of a bunch of cargo containers together, yeah, would make the size of like a building and a laboratory.
Hmm.
So I absolutely love that. Zemo in this episode, he starts to kind of show more of his villainous side again. He's without a gun, of course. He's not going to be touching that in plain view. He walks around as the other guy is talking, giving his little villain monologue.
He kind of goes into he's like, I'm not going to tell you anything about the super soldier serum. And then they're like, yes, you are, because that's the winter soldier and that's Zemo and you're going to die otherwise. And he's like, the
Mhm.
fear. But this guy's like, oh yeah, Baron Zemo and the Winter Soldier. Yeah, I should probably not be quiet,
Mm,
but I'm gonna be a jerk about it. And he just kind of went into this whole spiel about how he was hired by Hydra, and then Hydra was disbanded, and then he was hired by the CIA, and where with the blood of a test subject, Isaiah Bradley, was able to recreate a super serum that would not make you a hulked out monster or need to make you a cyborg. It is subtle and optimized. And then Sam's like, how come we never heard about this if it was the US government? And then he's like, because the blip happened.
which I guess he got blipped.
Mhm.
So another one to add to the blip list. He bit the dust.
Another one blipped the dust.
Excellent. All right, so this is when the episode starts to get intense again. It's very John Wicky. Again, we're still having assassins chase them. But Zemo does what Zemo do and killed Nagel because he's
But
still going like about his mission of
before
ending.
that,
Right.
while Nagel is giving his whole monologue, Sharon, she's like, "Oh God, the bounty hunters are showing up," and it's just taking out bounty hunters left and right. And also, I
Mhm.
think this is my favorite action sequence of Falcon and the Winter Soldier so far, and also one of my favorite Marvel action sequences. It was very. Very well coordinated. The cinematography of it was really awesome. They really
Mhm.
tried
Those
to
top
keep
down
it
shots.
those top down shots. They really tried to
Mhm.
like keep the camera focused on one shot as long as possible, and would just like she'd be taking out like five different guys per shot. And
Mhm.
it was really cool. It kind of reminded me, not quite, just kind of in the focusing a little bit more on the cinematics of the fight scene versus the fight itself, or just telling the story of the fight scene with really good cinematography and really paying attention to that cinematic is uh, Daredevil episode 2, that really awesome fight scene
Mhm.
where it was one shot that went just back and forth. We got a
Totally.
lot more of those kind of longer running action sequences, and I think it paid off really, really well. They looked awesome. They really showed us how much of a powerhouse Sharon is, and she just like between things would be like on the phone, like, guys, we gotta go. And then they'd cut back to Nagel being like, I am a the serum, and Karli stole the 20 that I have, so there's no more. And then Zemo murders him when Sharon runs into the laboratory, like, guys, we really gotta go. We're out of time. Zemo murders him, and then a bomb is shot into the lab and explodes it.
So no, this scene was great for several reasons, like you just said. That fight scene just made me sit and think, why hasn't this been done before? Why have we suffered decades of, men in action scenes when women can do them just as good and look just as badass? But now you have flowy hair. That's even better. Exactly. She kicked butt. I loved her holding her own. She's like Joan Wick. um but I also liked that Zemo is, again, doing what Zemo does and making sure super soldiers are not in the world. And yeah, so he kills Nagel and then immediately drops the gun because again, he does not want to hold a gun in their presence, again, probably trying to gain their trust to do something later. But he proves to be a bit of a challenge in this next kind of big scene because while Sharon manages to take down a bunch of bounty hunters, there are still more coming. And then the lab gets blown up.
The lab gets blown up. Zemo made his escape. Sam, Bucky, and Sharon all make their escape together. And this is kind of where we see we're so many ways Bucky and Sam have grown as a team. In many ways they have not. They cannot coordinate how to fight together for the life of them. I really think Sharon's back must have really hurt from holding all the weight in that fight.
How did she do it?
Zemo came in and killed everyone when Sam and Bucky were fighting.
I love their bickering. I love that they reference action movies in an action scene. Just talking about how, they saw it in movies and movies automatically mean that's correct, that that's the right thing to do, which is just so meta and just like a funny little note that I loved.
But it's also like Sam, what do you mean have you not seen action? You're a soldier.
Yeah, you are an action
You are
movie.
both trained soldiers. Why is this so hard for you two?
I just think it's like a pride issue. I think they both are like, my way is better. No, mine. They're bickering children.
I really liked because when we saw Baron Zemo come out of the woodwork to finish off the fight, the assassins who have come to kill them, he's on a rooftop and he's wearing the Zemo mask. It's the first time we get to see it on him, and
I know, he looks so cool.
Sees an oil tanker and just explodes the oil tanker with a bullet.
So smart. And then he hops down with his beautiful flowing trench coat, very Batman-like. I appreciated it.
And then he sees another container that has another one of his cars, I'm assuming, and just shows up back to them in the car, like, I got us a car, guys. And Sam's like, you're going to jail. And Bucky's like, no, we need him.
Even when he killed a villain, essentially, Sam is still like, it's murder. It shows that he upholds the American values that are great in Captain America.
Yeah,
like you can see it's great because you see
in general.
Yeah, for sure. And I do love that we are getting this dichotomy of, John Walker's Captain America, even though he wasn't in this episode that much, the way he handled that situation versus you see how Sam handles his situations. He always tries to de-escalate. He always tries to, it's his last resort to, use his skills. And that's very telling of him.
Mm-hmm. I think that's why him and Steve became just immediate friends. It's just that they're so similar in their ideals and how they view the world. We saw back in Winter Soldier when they meet each other for the first time that they really just bonded as their shared experience of a soldier. Mm-hmm. But I think more than that, I think they bonded in their shared experience of what it means to be a soldier and to enlist. And I think it was for very similar reasons. And I think that is just it's so interesting in Sam's character just to kind of watch him deal with these things and dealing with the fallen symbol, and especially the fallen symbol of his best friend.
They were both part of experimental programs,
which probably they both joined for the greater good, for that greater, how help people, this can help save more people, yes, I will do this.
Love it. Sam Wilson, love hour. So later on in this scene, he asks Sharon to come with them, but she says no. And he says, come on, I'll still pardon you. And she says, we'll talk about it when you get to that point. But she goes off and meets up with someone else in a car and talks about how now she has two problems, which makes you wonder who else could Sharon be working for? Is she
Mhm.
perhaps working with the power broker?
Yeah, especially because, like,
Hmm.
she had the most visible reaction when Zemo killed, what's his face? Nagel. She is the one who's
Mm-hmm.
yelled, "What did you do?"
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
I I think she could be working for Power Broker, that wouldn't surprise me, and that would make sense. I think there's also a possibility she might be working for the Flag Smashers, or with them in some way.
Interesting. Okay. Like maybe that's okay.
Because
I can
we
see
know
that
that
too.
these guys have some allies, like, just in what they are able to do, and we know just from the scene after this that they all met in Madripoor, which is where she is. And she could, just because a lot of
Mm.
her actions in this episode, like, they kind of make sense if she's working for the power broker, but also not really. Like, if the power broker just put a huge ass bounty on these three guys, she's in a perfect position to be like, delivered, here,
But
done.
she's not but she knows these
But
guys.
she knows these guys. But if she's in it for, like, the money,
I don't think she's gone full villain. I wouldn't be surprised if she's actually playing both teams.
she could be, yeah. Well, another
Because it
reason.
seems like, the Flag Smasher seems to provide, it seems like monetary things to his, employees, I guess, like Nagel and his lab.
Mhm.
So, seeing Sharon's dope digs, that I wouldn't be surprised if she brokered some sort of deal with him and maybe she turned later on, but she still like can't break her loyalty to the power broker. It seems like she's caught up in a situation that is complicating things a lot for her.
Yeah, that would make sense. The reason I think that she might be with the Flag Smashers is just, she the first thing that she says out of into the car with that one woman who lets her in is, "We have a problem to deal with." "Oh, actually, a couple problems. I'll tell you about it in the car." But she doesn't seem like that urgent about it, right? Like, I feel like if she just got the power broker's source of power murdered, she'd be a lot more frantic about the possibility of that not being the case.
Okay,
However,
that makes sense.
but we know from when Nagel was talking to the group that he's still in contact with Karli Morgenthau, because he says that she contacted him a couple days ago to see if he could help with the woman that we saw die later, right?
Hmm.
Which is kind of a weird person to still be in a little bit of contact with if you are on the run with said people. And
All right.
because the next scene that we cut to in this is Karli and the other Flag Smasher, whose character name I do not know. But the very first thing that they talk, or one of the very first things that they talk about, is that Nagel is dead and that the power broker is about to come running to them. How do they know that the power broker is dead so quickly? But the fact that that is what just happened right before the scene, I think, I don't know. I think she said that Madripoor was the only place that she knew something, that they had something for them, and he just said that he became a bouncer there, but that doesn't necessarily mean he was living there before. He might have just became a bouncer for the mob there because that was just a job opportunity. But with Sharon, also her thing being right now, especially that heroes are bullshit, and what they stand for, and that's kind of where the Flag Smashers are at right now, right? That the systems in place are bullshit, and just fucks over the wrong people.
So after that bit of action, we get into more calm down territory.
Yeah, we have John Walker and Lamar Hoskins back at Zemo's prison, and Hoskins is like, "You don't really think that Sam and Bucky broke Zemo out of prison?" And Walker's like, "Yes, I do, because I'm a dick." and just kind of talks about how they were just desperate for leads, so it makes sense. And talks about how they're going to sit on this information for a little bit. And Hoskins is like, "Ooh, does this mean we're going to go off the books with this one?" And Walker's like, "Well, if we get the job done, no one's going to care how we do it." And yeah, just a little bit more, "Oh, they're on their trail," and just kind of showing that John Walker has a lot different values than Steve did. That takes us back to the plane because they're going to that that area near Latvia where that one woman died, because it's near where Sokovia used to be. And they kind of talk a bit more about the symbols and what it means. And Sam's like, "Yeah, I should have just destroyed the shield." And Bucky's like, "No, that shield means a lot to a lot of people, including me. Like, that guy shouldn't have it, but if you're not going to take it, then I'm just going to take it myself."
Yes. Which is, in the comics as well, because Bucky does take up the mantle for a little bit. Yeah, I would love Bucky to take up the mantle. I think he would do a great job. But I mean, I don't think he would take it for a long time because I do think that Sam is going to be the one to carry it on. But, as far as Bucky's concerned right now, John Walker doesn't deserve the shield, and if Sam doesn't want it, then he can take it.
Yeah, I really
He would be the next best thing.
and I like that it's because we all know that it's not necessarily Captain America, but it's Steve's legacy that's he's protecting. Um,
Exactly.
and especially because Bucky got to meet Steve as Captain America before it all. At the very beginning, he got to see just
Mhm.
how heroic and what Steve as a soldier got to be like before it all went wrong. So now we cut back to it is Karli and one of the other flag smashers. They're in the middle of a raid. They take a bunch of supplies from a warehouse. We see everyone load it into their car. They drive away. As Carly's leaving the building, they have a bunch of tied up hostages of the global uh, retribution retribution council
Reappropriation council?
reappropriation council. And they're like, you guys are a bunch of thugs. And Carly's like, "Can't you see? We're fighting for our lives." And then she doesn't go in her car. She goes in this other guy's car. And the other guy's like, "Why aren't you going in your car?" And she's like, "Put your seatbelt on." And he's like, "What?" And then her car explodes because it was a bomb, because she's crossed the line. She is a little bit more determined for the cause now that what's her face died. And the flag smasher guy, I was like, There's still people in there," and she's like, "That's the only language these people understand." And the other guy's like, "Oh man."
Maniacally. Oh, you made her sound like a witch. No, I really appreciated the subtlety, because it was very matter of fact. She said, "This is the only language these people understand," and she's like,
Mhm.
"You need to leave it. And we're gonna stop the conversation at that." And I mean, you can tell that again. This whole show is about like the bonds that people have disintegrating and forming, because you can see that now within the Flag Smashers, stuff's getting a little bit more intense with them as well.
Yeah. Something also I want to touch on is just with Carly Morgenthau and the Flag Smashers, but specifically her as a villain, is I think she's actually, I'm really bummed that they didn't go with the plague happening in the refugee camp storyline. I think there's a lot of potential there, and I get cutting things for real world circumstances, but I don't think that was necessary. Whatever, I'm not the mouse, but I do regardless really like Carly as a villain, specifically as a villain in the immediate aftermath of Thanos. Thanos kind of being his whole thing being the amount of resources in the world and like the universe are not going to the people that need them, so I'm gonna herd out that to make sure that that can happen a little bit more, right? And now we're seeing just a population that is directly affected by that, directly affected by uh a very limited lack of resources now that all these people have come back, and the resources being filtered to the privilege as things tend to happen. She's really kind of a follower of Thanos in a way, and I think that's really interesting. And I think
Mhm.
that's a really cool dynamic to explore the aftermath of Thanos.
Absolutely, and that's actually a point that I that like totally skipped over me too, that yeah, she agreed with Thanos's values of wiping out half the universe, which is really morbid, but it's fascinating that not everybody who was affected by the blip hated Thanos.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so then we get to our final scene,
Ba-ba-ba. So
which once again gives us a lot.
yeah. So this is when I was definitely most excited. So we have our final scene. They are in Latvia, I think.
Mhm.
They're going to somewhere of Zemo's, and Bucky stops and is like, I'll catch up with you guys. I'm just gonna take a walk around in a not suspicious manner at all. And they're both like, yeah, okay, that's fine. The Winter Soldier wants to take a walk by himself.
But
That's cool.
then you see that he is actually picking up little tracking orbs that we are familiar with from Wakanda, and you can see by the soundtrack it starts to get a little bit of that Black Panther soundtrack in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
And we are introduced to our surprise cameo of the kind of again, the episode's ending on the introduction of a character. We are introduced to Io, one of the Black Panther Dora.
Dora Milaje.
Dora Milaje. I wanted to call them the Dora Mirage, but I knew that was
Yeah. She was a badass character in all of the stuff that she was in. I'm that had me screaming because I'm just excited for us to get more of Bucky's time in Wakanda because he did spend time there, and of course I don't think he was just there by himself. He seems to have developed a relationship with the people there.
yeah.
And they name
And
drop the White Wolf, so we're obviously seeing Bucky turn into something more.
yeah, it's really kind of a metamorphosis of his character. But I'm also really glad that they've brought in Wakanda and kind of that storyline back into play for this, because the Black Panther storyline is directly affected and directly because of the events of Civil War,
Mhm.
killing King T'Chaka.
Mhm.
Uh, so just I'm really glad that we're exploring the ramifications of Zemo being out of jail in that aspect too. I think that really just kind of it doesn't absolve, because I think when you're making a character of maybe they're kind of a good guy in some instances, you want to be careful not to totally resolve them of the crimes that are unjustifiable, and I like that they're doing that.
Yeah, she
I
asks
also
him to, she says to turn over Zemo,
mhm.
and
So
that's where we leave off.
yeah, I cannot wait to see what that conflict leads to. I'm really curious if we're going to see any more Black Panther characters.
I hope so. Mhm.
Okay, so now we're going into really big conspiracy theory time. Um, the writer, Malcolm Spellman, the head showrunner, was talking about how there is a surprise cameo in episode 5 of a very grounded character that he was excited to work for and continue the story of, and that it is a character that he thinks would be really cool to see fight with Thor. That was the weird line to me.
Fight with Thor.
But Black
Okay.
Panther in Civil War was in the Civil War, but Thor was not. He was the only Avenger that wasn't in that.
That's so true.
Uh, it
Hey.
also might be Eternal. It might be an Eternals hint at someone.
Mm,
But I don't know though, because because they described it as a very grounded character. And I don't know if they're gonna go space with this yet. Maybe they might. Anyway, I don't think it's Chadwick, but he would fit the description, and that would be really cool.
that would be amazing.
Hmm.
I'm excited to see him in What If, definitely, but it would be great if he also showed up here because he was, he is a big part of Bucky's story as well.
And it would just be nice to get one more him in live action in the MCU.
Yeah, that I think we would definitely we need that. We need it. But this episode is great. Loved it. So excited to see more.
Hmm.
Definitely so much to keep us craving.
Yeah, we're halfway through this journey, so thanks you guys for sticking with us.
And tune in next episode as we continue our journey through this great show.
Tell us what you thought of the episode 3 in the comments, or just send us an email at sirensdenpodcast@gmail.com.
Thank you to Ty, our producer, and Sean Thomas at buzzstudio.com for our theme song.
We'll catch you next time.
Bye!